Today, I'm going to talk about this book called 10. To me, this is one of the best guitar books ever written in the world of guitar instruction anyway. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to pull a couple of examples from it. I'm going to show you how it made an impact on me, tell you the story about it, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. Stay tuned. Here we go. Shane Terrio back at you. Thank you for tuning in again today. That little piece I was playing on the intro is an excerpt from a tune called Ballad of Triangles by the late, great Don Mock. It's in this book. This book is called 10. The full title, Top 10 Guitars Offer Their Insights to Guitar Artistry. All right. This was published in 1982. And at the time, I mean, even now, these are the best of the best. I mean, we're talking about, it's like the League of Justice hero, you know, the superheroes, the League of Justice, where they all powwow around a table and combine their superpowers. That's what this book is. I mean, they even have the shot of all of them around, man. I mean, it was, come on. Larry Carlton, Joe Pass, Tommy Tedesco, the LA studio great, Joe Diorio, kind of modern bebopper guy of the time, really great educator, Ron Eschete, chord melody genius from Houma, Louisiana, Don Mock, who's Ballad of Triangle. He was kind of the unsung hero of this book. I'll go into that in a sec. Sadly passed away last year. Robben Ford, legendary Robben Ford. Les Wise, another guitar player from New Orleans, great bebop, great instructor, educator. Jay Graydon, famous for all the Steely Dan stuff, played the solo on Peg, most famous, but was also a really big-time producer, guitarist, arranger, songwriter, was pretty much the guy that gave Steve Lukather his studio career, handed him a bunch of sessions. And Eddie Van Halen, who doesn't really need any kind of introduction, plus Howard Roberts. All right, let's talk about the book. I'm going to go over a couple things. So, first of all, 1982, I love this book. I love the way it feels. It's like really good, real quality paper, real good ink. There was no Sibelius, none of that computer stuff, man. This was all handwritten, hand copied. You can tell it's quality. Bad news, it's out of print. It's super rare and hard to get a hold of. I mean, eBay had a copy a few months ago. It was like $150. But don't despair. There are links online. You can search and find some download links. I don't feel comfortable sharing a link for a download because it's copywritten, and I'm going to respect the copyright laws because I like when people respect my copyright stuff. So, but it's easy to find. All right. But I got this copy from my teacher, Dan Gilbert, who was around back then at GIT. He was teaching, and he's still there. And he gave me this copy. So thank you, Dan. Anyway, let's go through it. So the first chapter alone, Howard Roberts. I talk about Howard Roberts a lot on my channel. He was an LA studio giant in the 50s and 60s and 70s. You know, he's played everything from the theme from Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, Batman, Twilight Zone, plus a bunch of record dates. But he left his career as a studio guitar player to become an educator, and he wrote this chapter on accelerated learning. And he talked about how to speed up your learning process, how to be an efficient practicer using timing, a timer, using, establishing time frames, establishing things you're going to work on, bite-sized chunks of material, something I talk about here a lot, and that's where I got it from. So, I mean, just the first chapter could be a book on its own. I would buy that book myself. He's got a checklist here for how to practice. And then, I mean, look at these photos, man. There's Howard. That's a great shot. Look at Eddie Van Halen jamming with Jeff Berlin, the cigarette on the headstock. That's like 1982, 81. That's like Fair Warning era. We're going to get into Van Halen in a sec. Tommy Tedesco. I love this stuff, man. Larry Carlton. Larry Carlton talks about, bending, and he gets into triads and muting and I've worked with Larry over the years. I've gotten to know him, and I've worked on a couple of his records, and I actually played bass on a tour with him. We sat in a train on the way to Osaka, and I asked him about this book, and he had fond memories about it. All right, so Don Mock transcribed all of this stuff. He passed away last year. He was the guy that kind of got assigned a lot of the grunt work, too, from what Dan Gilbert told me, who was around back then. All right, Tommy Tedesco, studio legend. He's talking about just how to, keys for shortcuts for sight reading and all kinds of things he learned in the studio. So one thing you'll notice about the book right off the bat, there is no tab in this book. And there's some diagrams, but there's no tab. And when I was at GIT, my teachers wouldn't let me use tab. This is a big boy book. They were like, you don't use tab. It's not real world. So it forced you to really get your reading together. You don't have to be a world-class sight reader, but you have to take a little time to work out some parts, But I'm going to go over a couple. Let's see. Joe Diorio. Joe Diorio, bebop master. He was known for a lot of his really kind of modern, he called them modern. So like he's got a chapter on chord progressions, turnarounds. Here's like a really simple one. In G, Then he's got like some of these chords, man, like example 2, just that. I could just take this chord. B minor 9, that's pretty nice. Pinky's playing the root 7th fret, 6th string, which is B. Ring finger's playing the 9, 3rd string, 6th fret. First finger's playing the 3rd, which is 3rd fret, 2nd string, minor 3rd. And my middle finger's playing the flat 7 on top. That's a nice voicing, man. Shit. So, I mean, you could just take one voicing from this whole chapter and make a whole day's study out of it, It's pretty densely packed. Jay Graydon. A lot of people don't know. He's the guy that played the solo on Peg, but he was also a big-time producer and songwriter. And he was the cat that pretty much gave Steve Lukather his whole studio career. He recommended him for a bunch of things, and then he took off. So he's got a chapter about... really great chapter. Both sides of the glass, being a player and a producer, because he did both. Hints in rhythm playing, how to not be too busy, creating melodic hooks, stuff I talk about. Does this sound familiar? Harmonizing guitar fills, how to think like a producer. I mean, really great stuff. Les Wise from New Orleans, Louisiana. I never got to meet Les, but I'd like to sometime. Called Target Tones, really good stuff. And he's talking about how to target notes by using scales and arpeggios. So like, here's a simple example in C major or A minor. It's basically this. If you take that C major scale fragment, and his example is this. C. It also works in A minor. All right, and I mean, there's tons of that stuff, and a lot of it is jazz, jazz fusion, but then we're going to get to Eddie Van Halen. So Ron Eschete, also from Houma, Louisiana. Ron's got a brilliant chapter on reharmonizing stuff and chord melody, and I got to know Ron when I was at GIT when I was 19. He used to talk to me in Cajun French, which was great. I'd see him in the hall. He'd go, "Terrio, comment ça va?" I loved it. And I got to see Ron 6 months ago here in LA at the Baked Potato. I went to see him and say hi to him. And he says he remembered me. He definitely remembered Terrio. Ain't too many Terrios going through that school. Robben Ford. All right, Robben. But look at these pictures, man. Great. Look how young Robben was with Don Mock. The ovation. Love it. I've been lucky enough to work with Robben, too. He's talking about using triads and things like that. A lot of guys weren't doing that in 1982, or they didn't know what they were doing. So here's an example Robben has in here over A minor 7 using triads. Let me see if I can read this. So yeah, that's a nice line. He's using a C triad. Here's a C triad. Pinky, ring finger, first finger, 6th fret, 8th string, 7th fret, 5th string. 5th fret, 4th string. There's a C triad. Then he goes, same shape, just up an octave. That's an F major triad. And then that's a G major triad. 1982. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of things. He goes way deeper than that. And a lot of this stuff isn't really blues based at all until you get to just the blues. That sounds like it'd be a blues. Then we get to Eddie Van Halen. Look at that photo. I mean, that's a great photo. I've seen it in other magazines before, but look at that. That's like, this is 1982. So for you Van Halen fans out there, that would have been Fair Warning era, which means Mean Street, you know, all that stuff. So Eddie starts out right at it with like tapping, and then he gets into bending. The photos are killer. Look at these photos of Eddie. These were taken, I don't know if Don Mock took these photos. If Don was still alive, I would actually have him on my podcast. Two-handed arpeggios, how to tap. And here's another exercise which shows many of the different chord possibilities this technique has to offer. So he's got like this whole etude going through all these keys on just the D string. Man, I should work that out sometime and hear that. So here's an example. It says, using the same technique, here's an interesting lick that goes across all 6 strings. It works well over an E or an A chord, all right? So that sounds like Van Halen. And let's see what else. Right hand slide. Classic Eddie Van Halen. I can tell just by the picture what that is. That's Mean Street, which would have been 1981, 1982 era, and that is the notation. It's like percussion almost, how to play this part. One day I'll get that down, but that picture is killer. And there's other techniques, like look at that, a left hand capo, right hand capo, sorry. Eddie was doing that a lot back then. Tapping, more tapping, tapping, tapping. Then we get to their solo from Push Comes to Shove and Out of Love Again. Then we get to Don Mock. Let me talk about Don Mock. So in the intro, I was playing the tune called A Ballad of Triangles, which I got out of this book. Now, Don Mock passed away, like I said, I believe it was last year. I didn't really know him that well. I met him a couple times. But this chapter is talking about triads over bass notes, and also known as slash chords. I have tons of videos on that on my channel if you watch me. So he goes really into detail, and he analyzes it and talks about how to solo over it. And really, this is kind of the most deep chapter out of everything. And when I was 19 and I was at GIT, I just was obsessed with this chapter. And I studied it. And then I ran across this, A Ballad of Triangles. This uses all of these triads in this beautiful composition. I think it's a really beautiful piece of music. So when I was testing for my honors at GIT, like they only picked like 3 or 4 people out of 100 or 200 students back then to try out. You really had to have your shit together, and you had to play in front of a jury, and you had to pass sight reading, all this stuff, and you had to pick a couple of pieces to perform. I was pretty ballsy, 19 years old. I picked A Ballad of Triangles, and I remember playing this in front of the jury, and Don Mock was there. I know Ron Eschete was there, maybe Diorio. I don't remember who else, but they're standing there looking at you, and man, I fumbled my way through A Ballad of Triangles. The thing that's beautiful about this piece is the bass notes move up almost chromatically. I just love that. And it's hypnotic, So the first chord, I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but the first chord, that's an F sharp over a B bass. F sharp triad, B. And then you move it up a whole step. But there are melodies built in. That's an E flat triad over a D bass. Beautiful resolution. I call them Star Wars chords. When Luke's looking at the the three moons out. D flat over an A. At the end, I love this chord. E over an F. I mean, that's a challenging example, but I got a lot out of it. When I shedded that, man, it opened up a lot of possibilities with my hearing and just the chord positions and things that I knew were possible. So, like I said, the book is not in print. It's hard to find. If you find a physical copy, it's going to be expensive, but you can find the scan online. And I hope you get something out of it. I just found the book again the other day, and I pull it out from time to time and shed out of it. It's just one of those things that still resonates with me, and I think it was just a great moment in time to assemble a team like this. So I hope you got something out of this lesson. I'll be back soon with more stuff. Please give me a like, subscribe, and show your love for the channel. Help me to continue to build it. I'm trying to get to 20,000 subs at the end of the year, which is not a big deal. I mean, I have friends that have 150,000 people on there. So if you could help me out, I appreciate it if you dig the content. I'll see you soon. Stay funky. Terrio out.